How are you? You know or what? I know. Please sit down. All of the guests today are African, of course, but are they all Ahmadis or is there some non-Ahmadi guests as well?
I understand they are all Ahmadis, I think.
Are they?
Except these two I have not checked. These from Sierra Leone, you are Alhamdulillah an Ahmadi?
No.
No, yes. Muslim, yes. So those two friends, yes.
Okay.
Yes, others are.
You're a non-Ahmadi Muslim from Sierra Leone.
From Sierra Leone.
And you also from Sierra Leone?
I'm from Zimbabwe.
From?
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe?
Yes.
Achha, you're also a non-Ahmadi from Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Right? Right.
Yeah.
And the lady sitting next to you?
Wife of Daud Sharif.
Dawda Sharif.
Dawda Sharif.
Yes.
MashaAllah.
Mrs. Sharif, Fatmata Sharif.
Mrs. Dawda Sharifa.
Yeah.
Come on, let's begin with the beginning.
Yes, please.
Mustafa from Ghana. During the lifetime of Prophet Messiah, we know that there are some converts from Afghanistan, and some of his outstanding followers were martyred. As a result, Prophet Messiah said they brought a curse onto the land of Afghanistan. So may I know if the recent crisis of earthquake, a political problem facing them, is direct result of these prayers?
These prayers?
The curse that Prophet Messiah said they've brought onto the land is the
curse.
Yeah.
How could they bring the curse to the land? Why?
By
which curse?
By killing the outstanding followers of his followers.
So he is trying to say that to those people who were martyred in Afghanistan, and the promised Messiah ﷺ has mentioned.
The promised Messiah?
Yes.
That time?
Yes.
You see, the problem is not directly, it is in a way directly related to that martyrdom of Hazrat Sayyid Abdul Latif Shah Sahib, but it is not only related to that. The problem existed much before the martyrdom of Hazrat Sayyid Abdul Latif Sahib. There was a duality in the character of the Afghan people, which was initially responsible for that martyrdom, and that inconsistency in their character still continues to be there and operative. That was the cause of the curse. It's a difficult question you have raised, in the sense that I have to explain the whole thing clearly and leaving no ambiguity. The Afghan people, being very staunch Muslims, at the same time have completely un-Islamic values and completely un-Islamic trends. For instance, look at Taliban. What they are doing in the name of Islam to humanity, what they are doing to the human values in the name of Islam, which stands as a protector of human values. This is the dilemma which you must understand. It runs deep in their blood, that they consider themselves to be a model in Islam. But when you begin to analyze their attitude within Islam, they stand as a model of inconsistency. They believe Islam and they reject Islam. Whatever suits their purposes, they adopt it. They should have known well that Islam is contradicted by that behavior. So today you can understand it with reference to the present political situation there. What is happening in Islam to women, for instance? What has happened to Islam in light of their treatment of women in that country? What is happening to Islam in the light of their treatment of other common people? they are brutally murdered by ignoring certain life pattern which is not essentially Islamic, which is only a Afghan pattern of life, and they attribute it to Islam, and yet they may contain inimical values to Islam, against Islam in their behavior. It suits, if it suits the Taliban. It is this inconsistency which brought about all the curse which you're talking about. They knew Hazrat Sahibzada Abdul Latif to be a most pious and most learned person, but he did not follow the Afghan values which were contradicted by the Quran and Hadith. So it was the Afghan values which had the upper hand on the mind of political government, the then political government of Kabul. They said, if we do not protect these Afghan traditions, the very power we hold will be challenged, and we will lose control of things here in the city and elsewhere in Afghanistan. So they were in effect opposing the very values they apparently protected, because all the cruelty committed against Sahibzada Abdul Latif Shaheed was in the name of a sort of Islam which they believed to be Islam, which contradicted the fundamental Islamic values of fair treatment to all humans, of justice and absolute justice for that matter, of being kind to the creation of God, and so on and so forth. This is the dilemma which brought about the first curse, and because they have not changed their ways since, that curse continues. Otherwise, if I take your question at its face value, it will seem very odd and unfair of God to have continued to punish a people and the whole people for the murder of one person. The murder of one person was committed in this background which I have explained. And as long as the background does not change, the punishment will continue. See? Thank you very much. Turn to next. Now, I was looking at them. Do you understand the question and answer very well?
Yes.
Now you have understood the problem clearly?
Oh, yeah.
Good, yes. Please.
So, Imran Shams Kwachi from Ghana.
Yes, I know very well.
We Ahmadis believe that Caliphate is being elected by Allah. And what's the proof that we can give to the outside?
Fine.
What's the proof that we can give to the outside people for them to know that really Caliphate is being elected by Allah?
It is the Quranic statement. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Who does it? God. And who created Abu Bakr, Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu? God or the people of Arabia? It was God. Who created Hazrat Umar after him, and Usman and Ali? It was God. Yet apparently they were elected and even sometimes not elected. Like it happened in the case of Hazrat Abu Bakr. Everybody started putting his hand under his hand for the oath of allegiance, and the entire Arabia was not consulted. Not only that, the Islam did not was not confined in Arabia alone. So if he was a Khalifatul Muslimin, as we know and we believe he was, then according to the democratic election, all participation from the world of Islam, wherever it had spread, should have been taken into account, and their opinion should have been sought. Nobody did that. An opinion of the Medinites was not sought. Just a few elders got together and accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq as Khalifa. Everybody followed suit. This is the creation of Allah. He does not remain confined to any democratic measures to elect somebody. But the one whom Allah considers fit, somehow or the other, that person emerges and the whole society accepts him. This is the reason why God has referred Khilafat to be a choice of Allah, not of the people who do bad. Have you got your answer? Clear?
Yeah.
Good.
My name is Yusuf Binada Inti from Ghana. My question is, what is the difference between religious and cult? Please.
Cults are not divinely born. Religions are divinely born. Cults are a product of certain existing social values which may be good and may not be good. But the totality of those values requires that some shortcut to spiritual success should be found. And those who create cults are not opposed. They are supported by a section of the society in which they introduce cults. And the cults become popular, while divine values and the true religious values have to fight hard to influence the society, because there is always a resistance against them. You understand?
Yes.
And cults are again short-lived. And cults many often are not transferred from parents to children. They come and go. They have a short flare. Everybody runs for them instead of resisting them. And after a while, they know that they have been cheated. Somebody has run away with the money which the cult produced. See? Please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yakub Otu from Liberia. I wanted to know
From Liberia?
Yeah, Liberia.
When did you come here?
81. In 1991.
1991.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of water has flown from under the bridges
Yeah.
of Liberia
Yeah.
since then.
Yeah.
And a great change has occurred
Yeah.
and nullified, and then another change has occurred
Yeah.
and nullified, and then another change.
Yeah.
And you are throughout in touch with your country or not yet? Not.
I'm in touch with them, but it's not too clear to me.
Your family is still there?
No, they are moved to Ghana.
I see. So there is no problem for you.
No.
Whatever happens to Liberia, it's not your problem. Okay.
But my question is, when you arrived in Liberia, you instructed us to build schools, clinics, and mosques in Liberia.
When we visited Liberia,
Yeah.
the instruction was given that Jamaat should build school, college, school, hospitals and clinics.
Right.
So about that he wants to.
So I wanted to know how, because of the crisis in Liberia now.
And that instruction was carried out,
Yeah.
and all our schools and hospitals, etc., were destroyed
Subhanallah.
by the chaos that followed. And we rebuilt them, and then they were destroyed, and we are still in the process of rebuilding them. Wherever we find it safe and appropriate. You see, we are living in a new Liberia, which is like an island within Liberia. It does not cover the entire Liberia. So where the Jamaat exists, that Liberia is gradually spreading and gaining its lost land within the country. So wherever these peaceful people spread, who form the government today, the Ahmadiyat also goes along under the canopy of established government and begins to reconstruct Liberia in the areas of health and education, etc., etc. Got it?
My name is Bokhari Salam from.
Your name is
Bokhari Salam.
Bukhari?
Yes, please.
There is another Bukhari.
Yes, Kalo.
Kalo. You are not related to him, are you?
No. So
Bukhari, what is Bukhari?
Bokhari.
Bukhari is a tribal name?
No, that is from Abu Bakr.
It is
native language.
derived from there. Tribal Bakr. Okay.
So my question is about punishment in Islam. I mean, according to the Quran gives a version of how punishments should be meted out when a crime is committed. But we see a sharp contrast between between the present day practice of Islamic countries and the practice of the Holy Prophet.
And the Quran teachings.
Yes.
And the practice of Ahmad.
Yes.
Right. You're right. There is a sharp contrast between these two.
Yes. So I want to know what justification, for instance, these countries, this so-called...
You want to know from me,
please, yeah,
who does not agree with these countries, like you do not.
Like this...
Why not go to those countries and find out from there?
Because...
or they'll kill you.
Probably.
Yes, probably yes. You see, they are evidently wrong because they are against the Quran and the practice of Muhammad. So one thing is certain, that they are wrong. Why they do it is a question which can be answered differently, because in different countries and also in different sects of Islam, their deviation from the practice of Muhammad is not always in the same direction. In some countries, some people are punishable according to their own jurisprudence, while according to Islam they are not punishable. But in some other countries, some other things are punishable, which again, according to Islam, are not punishable, but in their jurisprudence, those punishable things are not the same as found elsewhere in other Islamic countries. So the question you have raised is multifarious and would open up a Pandora's box if I begin to explain each viewpoint and each conduct within various Muslim countries. But the essential thing which you already know is that whatever they believe and whatever they practice is not strictly according to the teaching of the Quran and the conduct of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
And do not go visit those countries in search of this. Please.
Okay.
We want you alive. Please.
Yes.
I'm Terry from Zimbabwe.
From Zimbabwe, yes. How long have you been away from Zimbabwe?
Quite some time now, more than 10 years.
More than 10 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of things have happened there since.
There's quite a dramatic change, really, politically, economically, and
do you, politically, yes, but do you envisage any liberation for Zimbabwe from the onerous rule of the Zimbabwean people themselves, which may speak highly of their improvised philosophy of life, but may do nothing for the common people. Do you see any hope in this area?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there won't be any changes really, because
no real change at the street level.
No, not
at
on
village level. Huh?
No, not on any level really, because if economically, like the IMF would give funds to African countries and they basically sort of spend all the money paying back the loans, so economically it will be crippled. So there's
but that is only one problem.
Yeah.
The problem is at least twofold. Do you believe that the people who would be entrusted with this lent money would be honest in their discharge of its duties, and will they not pocket a large share themselves out of this money they get as grant from foreign countries?
As far as
this is one difference, it's a great difference.
Yeah.
What you suggested previously was that there does not seem to be any change. But if only this is the area of change, I think this is going to spread and influence, beneficially influence the entire country. Do you know anything about it personally? Because what I hear is from the world news, and I don't trust that.
Well, I'll give you an example. There is the current situation where there's land reform, whereby the government is trying to buy off land, actually to take off land from the white folk who basically took land for free.
Yes.
And the Western world is trying to impose sanctions on Zimbabwe for doing that. So in that way you can't really win. If the government is trying to make a positive change and then faced against sanctions, you really can't.
That is another problem which you have raised, but the ones we were talking about were different. I inquired from you because you are a Zimbabwean and you must, perhaps, I hope, if not must, you are in touch with the Zimbabwean affairs by directly corresponding with your people there.
Oh, yeah,
that is what I think must have happened. Huh? In that case, your information of actual things happening there would be more trustworthy than the information we glean from the study of news. Right? Now, what is bothering me is the question of the honesty at the top level of leadership. If the present leadership, which has emerged after so much, bloodshed and other problems, if the leadership which has at last emerged is honest, then there is room for entertaining hope. Whatever the foreign countries do, like the things you have mentioned, there is still room for hoping for something of a better future for Zimbabwe. But if they are not honest, then the whole game of apparent service to the country is false.
Well, in a way, the leadership really is pocketing money, and there is evidence for that. But as far as I'm concerned,
now, first of all, for instance, the land you mentioned, they have got hold of the whites' possession, which by hook and crook they got once in the history, whenever it happened.
They do intend to take, they haven't actually taken it.
They do intend to take it from them and not pay them for that piece of land.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And they wanted to sell to Zimbabweans. Right?
Right.
Not distribute free.
No, sell it.
So who will get the money from that? The government.
Well, the government to me is the people, so the money goes back to
the government. Will get the money out of nothing. The government will get the money out of that land to which some foreigners of which some foreigners had possession, legal possession, right? They have not paid anything to the foreigners, and they are selling these lands to their own people. Now they will benefit from this money, and they will be also providing genuine cause of resent among the foreign countries to which the people belonged who owned this land previously.
Well,
now this will create a double problem. First of all, it will show that the intention of serving their own people was not right. Their intention was to get some money somehow. They will get by this way. Secondly, they are depending for aid to those countries whom they are doing harm, and they are creating difficulties in the way of obtaining aid freely.
That is very debatable because they took
Let's turn it into debate here now in the remaining time. Please. Because the world will benefit from this discussion, I hope.
Yeah. People would argue that when they came, they took away most of the artifacts, gold, all sorts of,
everything.
Yeah.
That's not debatable. That's true.
It is true, yes.
It is true.
So this money they are taking back from the IMF, which they will pay back, is really nothing significant as compared to the blood that was shed during the war and the things they took which they never paid back for, which nobody's asking for, and this is only aid as far as humanitarian means are concerned. So
but yet you have failed to recognize the real problem. The problem of Zimbabwe, or the problems which Zimbabwe faces, are manifold.
Oh, certainly.
Zimbabwe needs to be rebuilt. Now, if the money the government received was actually spent on rebuilding Zimbabwe, then the government would be less dependent on foreign aid by selling this land to their own people.
Yes.
Is that right or wrong?
That's quite right. But the problem
they're not doing it.
The problem is when they get the money, it's dictated to them what sort of developments they should do to better the country from a Western point of view, which would probably not meet the needs of the people.
I'm not talking about Western point of view. I'm talking of the capital they receive.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of capital you're talking about.
It is, certainly.
A very large portion of Zimbabwe lands were not only taken over by the Western lord, but also they were developed highly by their capital. So the best agricultural lands are now available for the government, to the government. Now when they sell those lands, it is all right, there is nothing objectionable. But where does the capital go? Where does the gain of selling these lands go from there?
Well, it does.
To my information, this has not been kept separately to be spent again on the cause of the people. If it were so, this would be a very commendable measure, because this will relieve them of many problems of capital hunting. So instead of begging foreign countries for capital, they could employ this capital to rebuild Zimbabwe. Now, I have not come across any plan by the government to do this, which was highly essential. So where it disappears, this capital, I don't know. You know?
The money, I don't think it's disappearing really, because as far as the plan is outlined, it's meant to buy machinery for these farms, which the present owners are basically planting things like tobacco
You
which
see,
is
the
economically
present owner
viable.
also had machinery with them, and that machinery was also taken over by the government.
No,
No?
no, the government has not taken any farms as yet, and they haven't taken any machinery. All the machinery,
You have
all the
all-
farms
you-
belongs to
You're
the owners.
contradicting what you said to me, you told me just a few minutes ago. You said the government has taken over all the foreign farms,
Intends to take over, that's what I said.
intends.
Yeah,
It has not yet taken over.
it has not taken over because
Okay.
of this Western intervention of imposing sanctions, which would be very much terrible for the local peoples. So,
So, no problem is resolved at all.
well, it is a problem really, because either you go ahead with taking lands and face the consequences of sanctions, which
Why should you be afraid of sanctions when you take over the land and the machinery and everything which goes with it? Because you try to avoid sanctions, because then you will be left with no avenue of capital, no avenue which would provide you capital. Is that not the fear?
you're certainly right, but I
You
think
are
the other
not taking over the capital for the fear that they will be left without capital. The capital is there with all its paraphernalia. You must take over that, and should not care for the foreign loans, which will not be free loans, which will involve you in interest debts, which you will have to pay back through your mortgages. And the way they work, it will not be possible for you to get rid of your responsibilities to pay back those loans while you earn something for yourself as well. What happens is that before you begin to pay back the loans, interest loans, they give you a fee period of what do they call it? Amenity sort of thing. A free period where you do not have to start paying back the interest accrued by those loans. Right?
Right.
During that period, people destroy the industry altogether. And they eat up the profits during those years because they know they don't have to pay them within those 5 years. By the time they come to the point where they have to start paying, there is nothing to pay back with. So these countries become very kind. They say, all right, take some more loan. And start paying back from the loan you get from us. But it will not be counted as a return of the loan. It will be counted as servicing of the debts you owe to us. This is the dilemma which Zimbabwe is required to face by the Western powers. What I am suggesting is a completely different thing. I say forget about Western aid altogether. Let them run away with their whatever they have in mind,
Right.
with the so-called capital which they offer you. That capital, the acceptance of that capital will be lethal for your economy and consume the capital they have left behind. And let them be angry with you.
But the problem with the Western world is because of obviously the resources within Africa, they'll influence different groups of peoples to make conflicts within each other, and when there's a conflict, then they can take away the resources through
But if the present
buying
regime is really
weaponry
powerful,
and stuff.
if the present regime is really powerful and means good business, then the present regime should educate the people the way I am telling you things. That would unite the people, they would, the differences between people and people are always created when there is lack of trust, not otherwise. The way I'm suggesting things, if the government propaganda machinery was dedicated, devoted to this task of educating the entire Zimbabwean people and tell them the problem as I'm telling you, I'm sure
who trust
the Zimbabwean people who are waiting for a real change would fully support this government and help them take over without disturbance, in peaceful means, whatever is left by foreign governments, and would be satisfied with the decision not to accept any foreign loans. You understand?
Yeah.
If they do it, I hope they do. That is therein they will find the only possible solution for the problems of Zimbabwe today. That's one area. The second area is they're running away with Zimbabwean wealth, which was kept in foreign banks by dishonest leadership. Now what they're doing is they're running away with it altogether. And they say there is no legal heir to this wealth. So let this wealth remain idle in our banks unless somebody proves that he has the right to take it over. And the money you're looking forward as loan is your own money, deposited in those banks. See, why don't you read the problem as it is? And educate your own people. This is what is happening to these countries are like leeches. Those who deal with you, at least, they're like leeches. They want to suck your last blood, last drop of your blood. And the transfusion of blood they are offering you is in fact the same blood of yours which is transferred to this blood bank elsewhere in the body. Right? Thank God. Now, shall we turn to your question now?
No, where was I? When I talk to people of black origin, that is, about Islam and my belief in Allah and Muhammad, may peace be upon him, they turn around and say it's something that originated from the Middle East. And
what religion?
The religion of Islam.
Religion?
Yeah. And they do not feel a part of the religion, considering they only can point out one black person within the religion.
Who does not consider it a part of religion?
People I've spoken to from black origins, that is from...
Why do you draw a line between origin at all? Black or white or red and yellow? These are artificial divides. When you suggest this, it means you have already accepted defeat. The color black is not a wrong color. The color white is not a better color. You are involved in a situation where unfortunately you have been deprived of your political and economic power and the wealth of your country, which should have been utilized by you yourself. Because you are already at a disadvantage, you erroneously believe that the blacks are a sort of lower people. It is absolutely wrong. If you can understand this problem which I'm highlighting, you become undetached for a while and start studying black hens and white hens and red hens and yellow hens. Your chicken, I mean.
Yeah.
black chicken, white chicken, yellow chicken and red chicken. Don't you find beauty in all these various colors? Can you condemn black hens for just being black? Black chicken for just being black? So this is what the Holy Quran says. It says we have created diversity among yourselves as a mark of beauty, not as a means of your bragging about your own greatness or bigness as compared to other people. So your question is wrongly framed.
I do believe in what you've said. My point was, these people who feel alienated from Islam because they feel all this sort of religions.
Why should they be alienated from Islam when what you say is not claimed by the Holy Quran? The Holy Quran, as against the Bible, does not present a scenario of religion beginning with the Middle East.
I do agree with that, but my point is the people I've come across who have felt the way I've put across do feel they need an identity, and there's religions they are creating and believing in what they call prophets, like Haile Selassie, in as far as Rastafarian is concerned, which to me makes me worried to think.
Who were the pharaohs? Black people or white people?
As far as my understanding is concerned, it was black people.
Yes. And who was Moses according to the study of the Western scholars? Did he belong to Israelites who were black in origin or white in origin?
My understanding is black in origin.
So your question is dropped altogether. Even if it started in Middle East, even if the religion started in Middle East, it started with the black.
But the same black people have been fed with information which is really false because of colonial problems.
This is what I'm saying. This information is certainly false because this is presented to the people by your ulama in whom you believe. It is not presented by me as such, the one person in whom you do not believe. So you do not believe in Ahmadiyyat, but it is the Ahmadiyyat which comes to your support, rationally. And the people in whom you believe to be the custodian of religion, they have no right to be the custodian of religion, because their values are not based on the Quran and realities of life. Their values are based on hearsay. Thank you. Next. If we spend some more time with you, then this gentleman and the lady will have no time left. Please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I'm from Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone?
Yeah.
Very
My
good.
name is Fatmata Sharif.
Are you the wife of a chief?
No.
No? You're dressed like one. Very pretty dress. You have found this dress for her?
Yes.
Hey, you're a good husband, mashallah. Okay, please.
My question is, what are the Islamic principles of bringing up children?
Bring up children.
Yes, please.
It's a simple case of realizing that God has created children in His own image. So they must be good at the time of birth. So if you move along the wind, the journey becomes so much easy for you. So God has given you a good start. Children are created in the image of God. And this is what Islam requires of you. You should help them maintain these good values which were given to them as a start. If they do not maintain them, if the opposite of these values is what influences them later, there you have not been honestly discharging your duties towards your children. But the main problem is this, that it is the parents who do not follow those values. And if children are brought up in houses where parents do not care for the godly values with which they were given birth, then they begin to follow their parents later on. And by that much they deviate from the true path as their parents have already deviated. This beautiful philosophy was given to us by Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the words of the hadith, كل مولود يولد على الفطرة
فأبواه يهودانه
أو ينصرانه أو يمجسانه. These are the words of the Holy Prophet, that every child is born on Islam or Fitrat. This hadith has two versions. One is that of كل مولود يولد على الإسلام.
Yes, that is also.
See? So they are born Muslims already, but it is their parents. If they happen to be Jews, they gradually turn them to Jewish people. If they happen to be Christians, they raise them up in a way that they ultimately are misguided to the faith of their parents. And if they belong to other religions, the same happens to them. So this is a fundamental teaching of the Quran regarding the upbringing of your children. Right? Thank you. Please.
My name is Dawda Sharif from Bo, Sierra Leone.
From Bo?
Yeah, Sierra Leone. I'm deeply concerned about the current situation in Sierra Leone, and as a Muslim, current situation in Sierra Leone. And as a Muslim, I believe that this is really disturbing the social setup, at the same time also moving our brother Muslims and Muslims from their faith because of the perpetual hardship they are going through. So my request to you is, what advice can you give our Muslim brothers and sisters and Sierra Leone as a whole under the current situation?
I would give advice if I have any hope that they will abide by my advice. But despite all the advice I give in my sermons and in my addresses to the missionaries, etc., there, none is following my advice. So why to waste my advice upon them while the soil is not receptive? The people who have created this rebellion and the consequent chaos in your country are only governed by their own egos. They do not require any advice from outside because they care nothing for that advice. They only serve their egos. To hell with Sierra Leone and what happens to it as far as they are concerned. And they build fires to destroy urban and rural areas. This is their objective in life. Such people never hear. The only hope lies in the area of my being able to advise some Western foreign countries who have in an unwritten law taken up the responsibility for certain sections of Africa as if they belong to them. This is what is happening to Africa. You think you're free, please don't entertain this erroneous belief. You are being governed by long arms. Through diplomatic sources, through economic sources, etc., you are not as yet free. You can only become free if you are free from your bondage to your own selves and your egos. So these people I'm talking about are not free. They serve only their egos. If Sierra Leone burns as a consequence of that, they let it go to hell. That is real hell, burning. What sort of advice I could render them? But to their lordships elsewhere, outside, I advise, I tell them, have pity on Sierra Leone now, enough is enough. Do something to create real lasting peace. And because of many efforts in this area, which need not to be revealed in all their details, the British people did take here seriously my viewpoint and did take consequent measures to improve the situation in Sierra Leone. This can be shown easily to be a correct evaluation, despite the fact that the British people are not happy with the leadership in Nigeria. Yet they are helping the Nigerian army, this time really seriously, to establish peace and to expel these robbers and hooligans from your country, your capital, Freetown, and send them back to the jungle from which they came. This could not have happened without our quiet help. And those who helped them, who have brought about changes in the British policy regarding Sierra Leone, they know it, they recognize this, they know that we have been throughout honest and truly dedicated to the cause of Sierra Leone. So you see, though the known history or the known current history will not count us as factors, quietly we have been the factors in bringing about better changes. Also, one factor which people can never realize is the factor of prayer. I profoundly believe that unless God decides to bring about a change, no worldly measures can do so. And there, whenever I sincerely advise some people in favor of some suffering countries, I always support my efforts with prayer to Allah. Now, that is not heard by others, that is not seen by others. And I do not care whether anybody knows of these things or not, but I know that for measures to be successful, it is highly essential that they are supported by God, and for that your prayer can do a lot of things, quietly, unseen, unobserved, unheard. Right? Please? Your question is over.
Yeah.
Please, Anwar Sahib, what about your headache? Is still a headache for the British government? Because it is his headache is preventing the British government from expelling him and throwing him out of the country. So his headache in a manner has become the British headache. The people responsible for immigration are prevented from forcibly throwing him out of the country because of the medical reports that he is suffering from some headache for which there is no treatment in Sierra Leone. So, if you can draw benefit out of your illness, there is one man who does. Please.
So, we know when Hazrat Isa, Jesus Christ, on whom be peace, got to know that he was about to be crucified, he prayed to Allah, and Allah promised him that he will save him. Why is it that Allah allowed him to be put on the cross and go through all this torturing?
Every prophet of Allah suffers for the sake of Allah to a degree that his survival is a miracle. So that is why every prophet is put to such trials. Jesus was no exception. to go through the mill of persecution which he did, and to be subjected to crucifixion as he was, for him to emerge whole and alive, that was the greatest miracle which was to be shown to the people. It was the realization of this miracle which reinforced the faith in Jesus of those who had begun to believe in him. It transformed the society, because those people who had believed in him in a different type of way. After the crucifixion and after the failure of crucifixion to kill him, after the emergence of Jesus from crucifixion alive and in a state of migration to other countries, this was a miracle which completely changed the attitude of his followers to him and to Christianity, and they started in full earnest to bring about the revolution which Jesus came for. So this is the reason why it was all done. Right? 4 minutes left. One question perhaps, and answer to that question, I hope.
These Western people say, the Western world says that the economic and financial hardship that most third world countries are in need at the moment is because of they are overpopulated. That's why. And I mean,
that the Western people say that the hardship being suffered by third world countries is due to overpopulation. Is this right? He wants to find out.
If you study the figures of population, if anything, many countries in the Western Europe would top the list of people who overpopulate a small land. Yet they are not prolific. So this argument is just hollow, does not mean anything. It is the qualities of these people to strive hard to improve their economy, their politics, etc., which is paying them back, and they need not fear overpopulation in any manner. If this is done by Africa or all the countries of the third world, overpopulation will be no problem. It is a big population with small economy. That's the problem. So we should pay their attention to the economy instead of starting withholding or adopting measures to prevent their children to be born. And this, if they do it, that will work against them. Because in big poor families, the bigger they are, better they become better they are placed economically. Because in third world countries, it is not one earner of bread which takes care of all the family. It is all the family sometimes which takes the care of that who should have been bread earners. I have seen Africa where men sit idle and enjoy smoke, and wives work hard. The poor children they are brought about in the world, they work hard to earn the living to support their parent, their father, and this is a common sight. So the third world problem is completely different, which the West cannot envisage. In my country, in Pakistan, all the poor families have to work hard. Each child, the moment he is able to work, has to participate in that working, with the result that overall economy of the family is improved, and it's an excellent fight against hunger. While in rich families, the children waste their time idly by pursuing their course of happiness or enjoying free expensive education, etc., etc. So this is the reality. Birth control is no answer to this reality. Got it? Who's next? No one is next. Only 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds left, and I take leave of you. Assalamu alaikum.